Welcome to Talking in Stations. I'm Matterall. Today we're going to talk about a few things. One is this breakthrough technology that CCP has put forward called EVE Anywhere. You can play EVE Online on your browser. That's an amazingly important development for a few reasons. One is new players can get right into the game without a lot of friction of downloading a client or making sure their computer can actually handle EVE Online. Also, it plays possibly on tablets, which means EVE Online Mobile is within reach. So we'll see how that works out with Ashtarothi, who's going to be doing a demonstration for us in just a second. We'll also talk about Mindstorm Experience and talk about Galactic News Roundup, both topics that Ashtarothi will take us through. Before we get to that, we have Rundle with us. How's it going, Rundle?
Well, good. Hello tonight, and hello everyone.
All right, welcome back. And Caleb's here.
Hey, yeah, I was front running this whole segment earlier, and it was amazing.
Right, except one problem is that you're from Europe, and this is only available to US players right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's not at all anywhere. It's EVE in the US. There you go.
Yeah, right. All right, and taking us through all this and more is our friend Ashtarothi. Take it away.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and yeah, we do have a lot to go over today. There's a small patch that had one profound impact. As you mentioned, we now have a little bit more detail about the Mindstorm Experience expert systems and some in-game world news. But first, this scene that you're seeing behind me right now is running in my browser, which is pretty crazy. It is not only a pretty profound, like it's really cool as far as like what it could be useful for, as far as like getting people to be able to access the game is concerned. But to me, I am interested in what technical challenges they managed to solve by allowing a browser window to couple into the EVE universe in the same way that the normal like EVE client does. If you think about the fact that the login method or the fact that you had to close the window to log out was such a thing for so long, is because there's a lot about connection to the EVE client that is baked into, connection to the EVE server that's baked into the EVE client. So the idea that they've managed to decouple this in something like a browser leads me to wonder what is running this, what engine is it running in, what kind of freedom does that open up CCP to do in the future. So this is an incredibly exciting thing for me.
All right, first I'd like to welcome a lot of the people that are watching Ron USMC play on this thing all day long. I watched him too. It was pretty amazing. And he played the hell out of it, and you could see just how good this client works. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like if I didn't say anything, you wouldn't actually know that this is necessarily running in the in-game browser. It's actually the opposite of the in-game browser. It's the browser, or it's the in-browser game. Haha. No, it plays really well, and I'll actually show off one last little thing. I'm pulling up the chat really quick in a different browser window. But one of the cool things about this being a browser window, is that like it's full screen right now. But if I hit F11, because it's a browser window, poof, you can see my browser windows. And so I can pull up the details about the browser and be like, hey, look. So it's now entered into beta, so it's obviously not done yet. But basically this is a new way to play. Here, let me see if I can do it. Hold on.
There you go.
Yeah. Sweet. Anyway, new systems abound. No. So this will be a new way to play, to access EVE, and will hopefully give them new tools to develop maybe new ways. I may not use this necessarily, like, I may log in from a computer that may not have enough oomph to run like a fleet battle or something like that, but this will let me check my PI in a library perhaps, or maybe there's some restrictions off of the tablet, but now that this is a logical form factor, the next question is, how do we just make tablet interfaces work with this because browser windows are already designed to read tablet-like interfaces. So it's already halfway there. all it'll take is a little bit of extra time from a dev, even a 20% time project, to make this into an incredibly exciting thing.
By the way, I did test it on my iPhone just a few minutes ago, and you can get into it if you select desktop mode on your web browser on Safari. It actually goes all the way in. The problem is you don't have an escape button, so you can't really hit the settings or anything. And you kind of get to a place where you can't really play the game because you don't have a mouse attached to the phone. But it does play and it does look great. On a phone, you just need better controls. That's what Ash is referring to.
Right. And there are other solutions to this. Like I've actually played Eve with a pen tablet, like a drawing tablet. So, but that, I mean, that has basically, that simulates a mouse anyways. So, but it does majorly open up the avenues. And just in case anybody's wondering, no, this doesn't necessarily make it easier to bot or anything like that, because anybody who's going to bot, like you just write the script, you just run the script and it's good. Like it's not about making botting easier. It's about making Eve more accessible.
It's actually making it more safe because it would have to do visual recognizing AIs instead. So it's the other way around. You can't run the current bots in this mode at all.
By the way, Factical says possible Bluetooth small keyboard and trackpad. That's very interesting. I didn't think of doing that.
Yep. A lot of mobile devices now will absolutely connect to that. But the point is that all it takes is that last little bit of love to read those inputs and wire them to the correct, create some sort of solution. Maybe improve on the radial menu a little bit more. Yeah. Solve a couple of the bugs in the radial menu a little bit more. There's some really good things. Because if there's anything that Echoes has taught me, it's that interfacing with Eve through a touchpad just feels better than through mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, I was able to ship spin on it very easily. It's very responsive, and I was able to touch things with the with a touch screen. It felt very natural. You're right.
I just really want them to also then potentially open this up to a dedicated client in consoles, because I want to try to live fly on my PS4.
Well, yeah, that's the question: is what are they using to replace the fact that it's not running in the raw Eve client? And I don't actually have the answer to that yet. I'd be very interested to know more about, because like Unity, for example, can run things in WebGL, and there's all kinds of different ways of playing these types of tricks. But based on what CCP has decided to do, may open up really big doors. Like, for instance, right now, so CCP does development in the Eve client, which has its own requirements. It's mostly C++ and a lot of stackless Python still, and some other things. But they also have a pretty significant Unreal Engine development team for things like the new shooter and the previous two shooters and other such Valkyrie, and pretty much any of their 3D projects. And even their app, the Portal app, is run through is actually an Unreal Engine app just running through the engine. So if they could convert EVE Online to run in something like that, that would open up a lot of really crazy doors potentially. One of the things I found kind of disappointing about last year was that CCP said that their major goal was to advance themselves to have DirectX 12 within the client. And I was, quietly kind of disheartened by the fact that we obviously are not DirectX 12. No, yeah, it was DirectX 12. Yeah, because we got the 64-bit client, and the next thing was DirectX 12. And we didn't really get it in the way that they were hoping to. And so I was wondering if something was wrong. But this kind of development really shows that perhaps their ideas about what Eve in the next generation will look like shifted slightly. If you're going to be more browser than being compatibility focused is incredibly important. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I really feel like we're going to have a fan fest. Obviously, we're not going to have a fan fest, but it's the right time for a fan fest kind of announcement. And this feels like part of their over. It really feels like CCP is opening up a lot. You see a lot more ads on YouTube. You see a lot more like compatibility stuff happening like this. I really hope that we're going to see them kind of announce what the next phase for CCP and for EVE Online is going to be.
It's a couple things to note here. I don't know exactly what you covered, Caleb, on the European show. You actually covered this topic and showed it off early on.
Well, basically, we had Dr. Spot on, and he's got a bit of experience in all these types of services, and also got some rather deep knowledge on the whole method of how bots and stuff like that is made. So we were basically just letting him explain why this is definitely not worse than what we have now, and current bots will not be able to work in this environment. They would have to be completely rewritten, and they would operate in a completely different way. And experience from the other services that are similar to this is that you get less botting and less abusive things because it's harder to do. And people that make these things don't really want to put in that effort.
Right. There's also the issue of reach, right? Because this isn't going to be for everybody. This is going to be for new players, probably to reduce friction, because it's expensive for a CCP to pay for the connection, right?
Well, the whole thing with the payment and stuff, we don't really know that much yet. But the thing that I personally find amazing is the timing of this. The fact that this will now be available to some of the same people that have already been exposed with something like Eve Echoes, and the fact that it can run on Chromebooks, it can run on anything that's just, well, potato mode, right? It's potato mode with potato mode. You can really run this on anything almost, right? And that just opens up to a whole new range of players. And I would be amazed if we don't see a massive hike over the next 3 months.
It's
the ability for players to log in, like I said, at their library, or not that we're, living in those kinds of days anymore, but like, I really see this as catering to college students more than anything. Or any sort of person who's at a computer, doesn't have time to set up the whole Eve client, but would still need to access their account. When you're on vacation or otherwise away from your main computer, you can still access your Eve stuff, get your login rewards, do your PI, do some basic stuff, flip a contract, whatever you need to do, without having, like, this is that nice, in between to let you access the game when you're not at your main Eve client desk.
Or when you're on holiday, you can borrow your mom's computer and not have to load in
exactly
Eve Online. Anyway, the other thing is I heard that this was going to be up to 50 cents per minute connection or something, up to 5 cents or something. So that's why I don't know if it's for everybody. It may literally be just new players using this, but I'm not sure. Or it's going to become a giant expensive thing for CCP.
This is something that they have to do the calculations on and potentially do deals with the supplier of the service and all that. But as an initial thing, I think it's going to be fairly easy because it's not going to be something that people are using in massive amounts of hours. Right now, it's also limited how many minutes you get a set amount of minutes initially to do this, right? So that math just needs to be crunched out, and then it will just develop over time. And it does look like they have the ability to just flick a switch and then it's available for everyone and not just new players.
What's really funny about this, Ash, sorry to take up your time, it's that we were expecting in Q1 an announcement about EVE Online on Mac and Linux, or mostly Mac. And I don't think that message has come yet. And then we saw this, so it's kind of a surprise. They are working on a dedicated Mac client, and they have not walked that back. So that will be in addition to this browser version.
Yeah, and they did tease the idea that they might put Eve in the browser, but it was one of those things that when CCP says it, you're like, ha ha ha, like, oh yeah, of course we're going to throw it in the browser. It'll be like Skyrim. We'll have it running on a refrigerator. It'll be great. But, like sometimes those things come to pass. So here we are. And this really is a no-brainer. I mean, browser run engines have become better and better anyways. So, as they're trying to capture, one of the things I was thinking about when it came to this was like that college demographic is actually really, really important to them, because that college age demographic are the people that have the most motivation and the most time to make things happen. Like, we all did our crazy stuff that we talk about back when we were in college, and now we're all too old to do it, right? Like, we have kids and stuff now. So if they want more people that are going to be those workhorses that make things happen, they really need to make it so that it's as effortless as possible to enter into that college environment. And then also, there's that over the shoulder value, right? Anytime that somebody is doing it in a public space, there's a chance that somebody else will see that and be like, wow, that looks really cool. What are you doing? And then that person will begin the process of being recruited.
A couple more things. One is, this is the trend of video games anyway. Just like movies and music went to the internet, where you're more dependent on a connection than a powerful machine. It looks like video games are going this way. We've seen Stadia from Google come up. We saw NVIDIA make GeForce Now. And you've seen Sony make PS Now, or PS4 Now, whatever it's called. And we're not at the library phase yet, where people will offer you like rent Eve. Well, I guess it's subscription, right? Yeah, I guess it works that way. But they don't bundle.
That kind of concept is huge in Korea, though. Like the idea of like the internet
Bundling
cafe.
Games? Yeah.
And
Apple's
this ensures that
it.
Eve is available at an internet cafe.
Yeah. Bundling.
Now an internet cafe doesn't need to, what? Sorry.
I see. No. That's interesting. I didn't know that. But Apple's bundling, right? Apple gives you arcade. That's their thing. And what they do is
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you subscribe to their service and you get a certain menu of games that you could play, all free with no commercials, and it's just a clean experience, and that's what they're bundling for. Whereas PS Now does the same thing. It gives you a catalog of back games that have been, in PS2, 3, and 4. And so those two are libraries, but GeForce right now is, and there's another one called Shadow PC, I think. Those you have to buy the game, and same with Stadia. You have to buy your own content, but you could play it using their service for a fee, a small fee, $5 a month kind of thing.
We should also maybe remember that there's at least 2 Eve titles or New Eden titles that could eventually end up being ported to the same service as this. I would not be surprised if within the year you might see something like Valkyrie or Gunjack
Dust 514
on this platform. I don't think Dust, because Dust does need to be polished or
it'll need to be dusted off.
Dusted off. And they do have that new MMO that's coming out. So I don't think you're going to see titles like that. But you could revamp the original Valkyrie and Gunjack on this platform as well. That would be like mind blowing.
Obligatory reminder to everyone that Valkyrie no longer requires 3D headset. You can just play it 2D now. Most people don't know that.
I have it on my PlayStation 4, just saying.
Valkyrie? Nice.
Yeah, it plays on PlayStation. You can actually get it, and I think it's free.
Dirk McGurk's in the audience.
Yeah. Somebody commented, contrary to college students are also broke and would use alphas, but that's the point. We're talking about people that make things happen, not people that spend lots of money. The thing is that those of us who've been playing for a long time that have disposable income because we have jobs or whatever. Wait, what am I talking about? Other people, not me, but other people. They're the ones spending the money. And then it's the college students that are the ones doing all the scanning and hauling all the stuff and building all the ships and, flying all the fleets, etc.
Yeah. It's funny that anytime a new, here's the thing too, and Ron's in the audience, or maybe he left already, but Ron was really instrumental in TIS when we were debuting, and McLeod as well. We were debuting the 64-bit client and testing it, and we were looking at how you could film a giant brawl in the game and sweep inside all the ships and see all that stuff. And there was a 64-bit client, and there was also the server technology they were working on, so that the fights didn't collapse into mayhem because too many people showed up. And there's just a ton of technological breakthroughs that are being leveraged into EVE Online. This is one of those profound breakthroughs. I think the 64-bit client was the last time I saw something this, I don't know, game-changing.
Well, again, it also represents...
Is this where you're going to go around all campuses and put up posters for your group?
I've already tempted. All right, so, but like to me, I see this as a long part of a long line of victories, small and large, that CCP has gotten over the last couple of years by putting in the work to finally decoupling like the most core assumptions of the Eve client, right? You don't get things like fundamental market changes and log out to character select screen and new clients and running in the browser without doing a lot of really hard work pulling apart that spaghetti code that nobody wants to deal with, that kind of works together with what makes Eve fundamentally work. So we're seeing some dividends from years of effort potentially. And it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, or other people's technology. Rundle, go ahead, catch up.
So right, and I played around with it last night. Quite impressed. I did notice a few immediate shortcomings, which of course a new player would have to compensate for, and you probably couldn't use it in time sensitive fleet battles and stuff. Specifically, what I noticed was the transmission of key commands from my browser to the server and back. So I noticed a small delay there. Maybe they're going to be able to tune that. Did you notice anything else while you were playing around with it, either of you, on any platform? That's really been so far the only thing I really noticed, but what about you guys?
One thing I noticed a little bit earlier was, because I just had it in the background for so long, it actually eventually did a very interesting sound stutter thing, because it lost a few seconds in the Chrome browser, but then it tried to catch up. So like for the next 30 seconds, the background music was playing at like 10% faster than before. It's really weird. But other than that, I haven't had any I haven't put it to the test or anything. I've just flown jump system to system.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I went and did a little bit of battle. I fought a few rats here and there. I jumped a few gates, moved around, tried to warp, and just something simple, hitting escape to try to pull up a menu. That was where I really saw the first indication of it. And then so I thought, I'm going to put this through its paces a few more times. And so there were some keystrokes where there was a delay. I think I missed a couple keystrokes, had to try them a couple times. So, spamming the buttons was, that's probably a good Eve skill to have anyways, as long as you're not turning on and off modules, right? Spamming your F1 can do rather harm if it's your cloak or something. I actually lost a ship the other night because I fat fingered my cloak button twice, turned it on and instantly turned it off and died. It was a dumbass move, cost me 300 million. But in an Eve client, in a browser, I might not know if I hit it. So instances like this could happen more. I hope they tune it, or maybe have some way to overcome that. But
well, so the problem is that there's going to be some of that might not ever be able to be fixed because it's not in CCP's hands. So two things that I just noticed because you were saying it. One, as people can see, I actually haven't hidden my UI today, and that's because the Control F9 hide UI didn't seem to work. And two, now that you've mentioned it, I've been away from here, I've been come back and all that sort of stuff. I can hit escape over and over and over again, and it will not open up a menu. If I hit escape and hold, then it exits out of full screen, and then I can come back into full screen. And now if I hit escape, it'll open it up. But yeah, so the problem is that you are still running in a browser, and so the browser's also potentially capturing those events, or how those events get passed over to whatever's going to be processing in the Eve client. Like some of these things might be able to be fixed, but some of them, it may not ever be 100% as responsive because it isn't a native client.
Right. Like Alt P. Am I hitting Alt P to print, or am I hitting Alt P to bring up an Eve command, right? Or
right,
like
explicitly, so the escape key obviously is how you would leave a full screen window in the first place. And like how I do it is with F11, because escape is captured by the Eve client. But even then, when I come back to the Eve client, it has the map window over to the side. So it captured the F11 action for both the Eve client and the browser window.
Yeah, I figured with the escape there was something else going on just because of the repeated nature. But I was missing some F1, F2 keystrokes, and some mouse buttons, is the right click and change camera aspect, and if just a few things, and then it would catch up, and then I'd be fine, and then there would be a few delays. So that's what I noticed. But look, it's beta, right? I was super excited. This a minor complaint. I think this is fantastic.
Yeah,
also,
not to get too deep into the weed. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, one last thing. I just to give some perspective here. Actually, Rundle and I were talking about this sort of thing back in the day, like what it was like to play EVE Online. And it was, I think it might have been a Thanksgiving where I was with family hundreds of miles away. So I called my nephew and said, "Can you install EVE Online for me? Log in as me so that I could change skills because I forgot to do that sort of thing." And it took about an hour or whatever to do all that stuff, and we got it done. But back then, changing your skills was super important when you didn't have that many skill points. So all that effort to be able to just use a browser and stuff, I think it gives you that instant access you might need. But you're really going to stay at home and play on an actual browser most of the time. I would think this is for new people and for like a little PI here and there. I don't know if people would play this all the time in their browser. I don't know. Maybe.
No, I think this is for lesser interactions. I think this is for smaller things. This is not going to have the RAM or the CPU that the full EVE client would have. I would not do high-end things with this.
I wouldn't FC this.
And I don't think that would be what it would be for. Oh, certainly not. No. And also, I can't imagine it's going to be great for like multi-boxing or anything like that.
Oh my gosh, that's Well, there's one other thing, though. This is going to provide great excuses for people that screw up, right? It's like, my browser didn't refresh right.
Well, it's beta, so use at your own risk. I wouldn't recommend doing anything on this that, like, your connection is really, really important. Like, I wouldn't run the Abyss necessarily unless it's in a ship that you don't mind losing or it's on Sissy. Wait, I don't think you can do Sissy with this. But either way, the point is that, like, it's a fun thing, and I think it might be a useful tool, but I would not recommend people consider this to be your main go-to EVE client. This is for when you don't have time to run the main client.
Yeah. My last thing on this is I love it because it may give people who can't afford an expensive machine or expensive video card access to a beautiful game that they can start to participate in. And to me, that's like a wonderful development. And that goes for not just the United States or even Europe, but just other countries where the technology isn't quite the same or as available as it is here,
And on the access front, when you're talking about new players, imagine how many people don't get into the game as part of the installation process. Right. This has no installation.
Yep.
So it would just bring the person directly into the experience. And then when they want to go deeper, then they can download the client.
Yeah, frictionless. All right, Ash. Anything else on this?
Not on that, but there is a lot of other things to cover. So we'll just talk about some of the other stuff. Today we had some basic patch notes, which only one of the patch notes stood out to a lot of people, which is, I don't know how they did it. I don't know who did it, but they did it. They killed the red dot after over a year of the player base losing their goddamn mind over a red dot. There is now a toggle in the general settings to turn off the red dot. Congratulations, you can go back to not knowing when there's new items in your inventory or when you've swapped into a clone with implants. Good job. No.
So this is where all those people, this is your time to shine. If you have been waiting in the background, waiting for the day when the red dot dies, so that you can rise up and scream at the top of your lungs, "Where is my red dot? I miss my red dot." Now is your time. Time to shine.
It's a toggle. I think we should take up all of the red dots and put them together and perform some voodoo rituals and turn them into the in-game browser. Although now I really want the in-game browser so that way I can open up a browser and then open up Eve in it and then open up a browser in Eve and then try to run Eve in that.
Oh, what's that called?
All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
What's that called? That movie?
Inception?
Inception, yeah. Eve Inception.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
But taking the dot more seriously, what were they trying to do and how did they fail and what went wrong?
So the red dot is simply an indication in your inventory that there's something new there. And what ends up happening is that there are players that either get confused. Like, for instance, this happens all the time. you start a mission, and the mission gives you an essential item, and you don't realize that that essential item isn't in your cargo, or it's in your item hangers more specifically, so you undock, or you receive an item from doing a mission and you don't understand where it went, or during the tutorial they give you an item to fit to your ship and you don't know where it is. So the red dot is designed to be a breadcrumb that helps you understand not only that something has changed in your inventory, but specifically what has changed. The problem is that its rollout was really bad. Like, it would fire off all the time. It wouldn't clear correctly. People hate change broadly. And the problem is that the discussion became about the red dot and whether or not it should be on or off, and not about the value of the red dot. And so while changes were made to make it so that it didn't show up at the wrong times, because all of the focus was on the red dot showing up when it wasn't supposed to. Now we end up with a feature that actually ends up not doing what it's supposed to do. Very frequently, I'll actually want to use it as a breadcrumb, but because it disappears so quickly now, it's oftentimes where it's like, well, now, never mind, it's just one of the items in my pile again. And so it's like, if it only worked for what it was supposed to do, then it wouldn't feel so bad when it didn't work out well. But since we focused on the fact that it didn't work out well, we instead end up with a toggle that lets you turn it off instead.
CSM member Brisk Rubal says, even if it were fixed, veterans still didn't want it.
Correct.
I actually,
a third change is bad in there.
I actually liked it. I may be in the minority here. It depends on the vocal majority or whatever, but I actually liked it because it reminded me I got something new and I could go and look at it and say, okay, noted. Check it off as read in your inbox kind of thing.
Well, now you can be defiant and you can go to that little button and you can click it and be like, no, I want the red dot.
The default is it doesn't appear, or the default should
be.
I think
the default is it does.
Yeah, it should.
You can turn it off.
Advanced users should be able to turn it off and opt out, but new people
can make sure it remains on. Yeah, I always had it where, for sometimes when you would reload in, a fleet battle, all of a sudden you'd reload and the contents of your cargo would change, and all of a sudden the red dot would appear, right? Because the contents of your cargo hold changed. That's the only thing I could resolve.
My favorite is, no, this actually might be what it is. You're in a ship, and suddenly it says that your ship has a bunch of new items in it. Do you know what you just did? You just swapped to a new clone. Because it detects that within the way that Eve manages things, everything's just a container. So the implants that you have is in a container in your head, and there's a bug that makes it so that what implants you have is listed as an item. So you'll have a red dot there, a ghost red dot on your ship, and it'll say that you have so many items. That's your implants.
Sometimes that would happen, but no, I'm talking literally out in a fleet battle and you're fighting and, you've jumped through a gate and you're fighting.
Oh, yeah.
And then like right in the middle of you're in space, nothing's changed. I haven't received anything back at station. I haven't sold anything. No one has delivered anything to me. I'm fighting, and all of a sudden, hey, look at that. You got new items in your cargo. And the only thing I could ever align it to was I reloaded my weapons twice in a row really quickly or something, and it just screwed up the number counting. And so all of a sudden, hey, look, we think you have new items in your cargo of your ship. I mean, there was nothing changing other than that.
Right. Yeah, and you're correct. And actually, the ammo thing was one of the things that caused it to happen. But I'm saying, like, what I described, from my understanding, is still happening now. Yeah. So, whatever.
Anyways, a lot of people are happy. Few people are, I'm going to keep it. And the day is
Reddit
come.
won. Congratulations. Okay. So next.
Shivers.
What else we got?
So let's go from the thing that makes everybody happy to the thing that makes everybody mad. Mindstorm Experience Packs, which is basically the branded version of the expert systems that we've been looking at for the last couple of days or weeks. So the basic expert system packs would be the mining barges, and then each of the 4 empires exploration frigate. And the Mindstorm Experience Packs are these actually pretty affordable packs that come with the skill or the expert system to be able to fly the ships. Plus, at least with the exploration one, it comes with a ship with the fit and all of the packs come with a small amount of Plex with it too, just to kind of let you sell the Plex for some extra, like whatever changes to the fit that you might want to do or whatever. So it's a little pack with the expert system, the ship, and a little bit of Plex to buy something nice for it, for like somewhere between $3 to $5, I think.
Buy something nice for it.
And yeah, I think this is a really good one because it allows a newer player to be like, okay, well, if I really want to see what it's all about, this gives them a small sample of what it's all about. And hopefully they'll then like use that to commit to a deeper, I don't know, step into the pool.
I think there's more to come on this. I think they've already shown you, like now when they include a ship with the skills, they're starting to put a package together. And I think the next thing you might see is, I don't know, Rendell, what goes with that? Maybe
it's an all-in-one. You get not just the skills, you get the complete element to truly go and try it without having to ask anyone else for help or to spend some time to plan it out. It's the zero planning pack, right? Hey, I just want to do it. It's Saturday morning. Boom, I get it, and I go try it all weekend.
I think it's not a coincidence that the very first pack they give is more or less an exploration pack, because they have exploration tutorials in the agency. So now you can actually utilize the thing that you have for a limited time. And I think you'll see more of that as tutorials are created for roles, like this is how you tackle. That may be when they release, a deal on, tackling or electronic warfare or whatever.
That's possible, but it is true also that exploration is like basically the best place for a new player that is ambitious.
You just moonwalked on the screen there, by the way.
Yeah, I tried to move things around so that way I could show off the expert systems details.
Sorry to mess you up.
No. Like exploration is that place where if you really want to put more effort into it, you want to put more work into it, you want to, as a new player, you want to get the most out of your new player capabilities. Exploration is pretty much it. Like exploration, faction warfare, PvE, PvP, because everything else, you got to either grind for it, you got to get up to battleships, you got to get the good equipment, you got to da-da-da-da. Like exploration, you can literally, within the first 10 minutes, you can hop in your exploration frigate, go 2 jumps, find a bunch of drones on a jump bridge, or on a jump gate, a Stargate, and then have like 7 times your ship, which happened to me. Or you can do what happened to my now ex-wife, where she made it like 3 jumps, and then she found a ghost site, made 36 million in like 1 hack, and then left, and was like, woohoo! Like,
fun.
It's, yeah, and like the ability for people to then take those ships, like get that expert system, grab a yeet filament, noise 5 filament, and activate it, and then try to get home. Like yeet exploration's an amazing way to give new players an adventure, because just giving them the ship and then being like, okay, now go out and find stuff. Well, they don't know what the hell they're looking for. But if you tell them like, okay, take this thing, now go to this sun, now activate the thing. Okay, now you're in nullsec. So let's talk about how to get home, right? Like that idea of like, I'm in the dangerous area with all the money, I need to raid it and get home safely, is something that people understand pretty well. And since they're already there, they can't think their way out of it. Like they can't stop themselves from doing it. And so honestly, a lot of them end up learning that nullsec is not as scary as they thought it was.
There is one small mistake on this that I will like to mention, and I did mention it on today's show. I don't think CCP should give us things that players can actually build and generate. And again, I would rather that they give us skill points than ships that are finished and assembled. This is a bad thing, and the CCP needs to stop giving things that is part of the in-game industry, because it destroys the activity in the game. It is better that they give us things like skill points, or even sell us skill points, because the only people that suffer are the zombie farmers.
I have a counterpoint to that, which is that so the mining barge isn't given away. The only ship that is given away is the Tech 1 exploration frigate, which is the same thing that is given away if you just do the new player experience. It's given away by GMs for free, or they're authorized to give them away as part of their new player like engagement, either that, an exploration frigate or a venture. And giving away T1 exploration frigates has been something that CCP has done on many, many occasions in different ways. So it is true that they're normally built But
I've always disagreed with it, and for one reason: when everyone asks what can new players do in industry, well, if the new player industry stuff is given away, there is no new player industry to do because they get it for free.
well, it wouldn't be profitable for, like, if, as anybody knows, like, the reason why new player industry isn't profitable isn't because they don't have the thing to build. It's because whatever they build, they're building it less efficiently than the more experienced players, and therefore they cannot be competitive in the market with them. So it doesn't actually matter, because even if CCP never gave away a free magnate, there'd still be a glut of magnates, because one experienced player can fat finger a 0 and suddenly produce 10,000 of them and supply them for the next, till the end of time.
Yeah. I also feel like Caleb would probably be happier if when your ship was destroyed, it said, "Don't worry about it. You can buy another one off Caleb. He's located over here. This is where his shop is."
Where do I get
I
that
want
feature,
Aura
please?
to
Can I
laugh
have
at you
that
again.
now?
Yeah, exactly. If you can relate items you have to play with to people who are building them, and if you can make that relationship a little bit more understandable, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I feel like this reminds me of the argument or the conversation, the discussion that's been going on the Echo side of things when it comes to insurance and the production of, like, free ships. And they, like, have gone the opposite direction, which is kind of weird, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But like, where I've landed on it is, it makes absolute sense that the empires would be able to provide T1 ships pretty well. And T1 frigates probably is one of those things that, like, it's not every magnate that flies around in space is built by a player at that point. Like, there are non-player entities that build magnates too. So, like, especially when it comes to T1 frigates, I'm more willing, like, yeah, give those away. That's fine. But that's why I was paying attention to the mining barge, because it's not just a slippery slope. Like, there is certain things that should be able to be cordoned off and be allowed for them to be able to provide. T1 frigates, especially the non-combat focused ones, probably in that realm. And then there should be a hard line, and past that, they don't go, right? You don't give away Ravens. You don't give away, that's why they have things like the SOCT ships. That's the ships that they're allowed to give away. That's why they produce those.
There's probably some creative ways they could work on this. I think, this is all, we're at the front end of this, you guys. So, the feedback will probably be heard. They'll monitor it. But I mean, they could do a T1 frigate manufacturing pack, right? And only new players can get it. You have to get it within the first 60 days of a new character or something, and you can only sell them in certain stations on a special market, and maybe you get a token for it or whatever, and the new player getting this expert pack gets the token, and you exchange for the token, and then you hand it in. Like, there's some mechanics they could introduce to really answer Caleb's concerns, to get some education in industry education, get the ISK flowing to the right players, or have no ISK at all exchanging hands. And then once the one ship dies, they're in the market and they're like, I love that. And then they got to go to the real markets and buy it because the token doesn't work. Or they spend another $3, which CCP would like, or $4, and they do it again, and a newbie benefits. They could probably think through this a little bit. And what I'm seeing is that they have built the mechanisms now. They're starting to build the mechanisms to enable these highly integrated, cross-functional new player experience, and or even just kind of moderately new player experience, and really integrate them into the game so that it doesn't break the regular marketplace and the players ISK flow, but they could address these sorts of things and keep people around. This is all about keeping people around longer, and they could really get creative. They have the mechanics for it now, and you can do it in a browser. So I could just do it from work now, right, as a new player. So all these things tie together, I think.
Yeah, one last thing about this, if you don't mind, Ash, sorry to interrupt you, is the idea that, first of all, let's talk gold ammo, right? It's attributed to me saying I'm okay with gold ammo. It's all right. We're going to talk about women and Eve next. Ash, you can stick around for that one. The gold ammo thing was, I was saying, like, if CCP wants to figure out avenues to make money, I'm always willing to listen to what they do, because essentially pay to win and all that stuff was something that was going on in 2010, 2011. It was a bigger deal then than it is now. But look around you. You were doing the whole thing that they were trying to propose. It's just being laundered better through all these weird things. We are so far beyond pay to win basic descriptions. So that whole gold ammo thing, all I was saying was, if you're part of people who say gold ammo must hate, must scream, you are being unsophisticated about where we are with games, and especially with EVE Online.
So, just to rein this in a little bit, to remind, the original definition of what gold ammo would be is a tool or an advantage in-game that can only be obtained via premium currency and has no secondary market. So, actually, a really good example of this would be these expert systems, because there is no secondary market. When you buy an expert system, it doesn't go into your inventory. You can't buy an expert system with ISK. Therefore, if, for instance, if you could get an expert system that gave you Gunnery 6 for somehow for a period of time, that would be the equivalent of gold ammo, because the only way to get that access to that 5% additional power would be by having that expert system. And the only way to get that expert system is by paying real life money. That would be the quintessential definition of gold ammo. Now, it's obviously been muddied from that pretty far. And the idea of I can put in ISK or I can put in real life money and gain an in-game advantage. Yeah, that's been around since as long as Plex has existed. So it's a very complex issue that has a lot of way more emotional arguments to it than rational ones. But that's why it's really important to make these firm lines, and why I say that this isn't a slippery slope, but it's something to be very careful to pay attention to. It's not a slippery slope because they've been giving away magnets since before I've played the game. There's never been a time that I've played the game that there wasn't magnets made for free through the new player experience. And therefore, this doesn't represent a new change.
Again, you cannot just.
And you know what? You guys have a valid argument. I understand that, and to that I say that if you want to say that it's wrong from the very beginning, then that's fine. But the argument that it is a slippery slope, the reason why I feel like they can feel safe with putting it on the safe side is because it's actually very consistent with their processes to allow especially Tech 1, especially non-combat, i.e. exploration and mining frigates, to be given away by CCP.
Yeah, and the point I was making is that hurting the SP farmers, fine. Hurting ISK farmers or ISK botters, fine. Hurting industrialists and miners, bad. Very, very simple logic.
I agree. I just don't feel like this is actually hurting the industrialists.
All right. I like that.
It has since the beginning, because there's just so many of these ships coming in and they're not being lost. So they are always available. This is why pretty much all of the hulls that are on the giveaways are not being, you can't produce them at any profit. You can't even break even. You have to give them away, which means that it ties into the whole Tech 2 production. And then you have, Dirk called it slippery slope. It's just bad, and it's always been bad.
All right, we'll pick that up another day. We have more to get through. We're going to lose Rundle in a second, who's going to Trash Talk Tuesday. You can visit him after we're done here. We'll raid them. But Ash, you probably had other topics you wanted to get to before we wrap up.
Yeah. I will be very quick with the last thing, and we can dig into it more deeply at another time if you want to. But
when you were looking, I like that. I like that intellectual judo you pulled with Caleb there, where you just basically agreed with him, and there was silence. And I thought, wow, that's a master judo. Take the weight, shift it, let him fall past you. Yes.
All right. So earlier I was complaining about the fact that the new news site doesn't have the world. Not earlier today, but earlier this week. The new news site doesn't have world news in it. And right at the same time that all this stuff was happening, they managed to slip in a world news article right after I was paying attention. So several days went by without me noticing. But there is a new Galactic Hour news roundup. I won't read it tonight because we don't have enough time, but I will summarize really quick. The first article is about PKN, which is the people who are revitalizing the JITA trade hub. They are also responsible for these new expert systems, and specifically they're tying it to LiDi and their subcranial nanocontrollers, which is associated with the Quaif a new item in game that was also introduced for Quaif that activates the nanocontrollers, which relates to lore events that happened a year ago, in which Quaif was accused of using said nanocontrollers to mind control people and sway the galactic or the Galente federal elections. So there's this really weird association with PKN, who's major corporations within the Caldari state, associated with Jita 44, working with these nanocontrollers. Plus, there's other accusations of it being potentially dangerous AI, although they claim it's within compliance with Concord's Department of Enforcement restrictions on artificial intelligence and life, which is called Derail, which I don't know if we've ever heard of before, but it's fantastic. But either way, what's interesting about that is this is now the third time that we've heard about dangerous AI, and it's a huge red flag to me. The other two times was Edencom's weapon system uses potentially dangerous AI in its predictive methods, and there's another dangerous AI thing that now I can't remember. But either way, the reason why this is all important is because this is associated with drifters, as drifters are thought to be a rogue artificial intelligence that's escaped out of the construct. And so there has been weird accusations connections between PKN and drifters, and Lidai's mind control devices and the drifters, and the SOE, Sisters of Eve, and the development of alpha clones and drifter technology. And so one of the things I find really interesting about this is that it seems like CCP puts these landmines into features that are often features that you would think that they'd want to be successful. Things like HyperNet, expert systems, skill injectors. And they leave these like warnings like, woo, what if it's actually rogue drones that are going to take you over? Oh, that's what it was. Mimesis implants, the Concord implants that you can get from DED site, DEDLP, that makes Triglavian guns shoot better. That is also out of like potentially dangerous AI. So Concord, Edencom, PKN, all these guys are experimenting with very dangerous AI at the same time that this game is kind of coming to this the story is coming to this apex. The precursor crisis is coming to an apex where one of the forces literally represents what happens when AI gets out of control. So we're seeing a lot of clues that may be the next shoe to drop, but it's also one of those things like CCP also made it so that excavator drones are actually rogue drones. So if they ever wanted that to go wrong, they could just be like, and now all your excavator drones go crazy. Like, I feel like maybe they're giving themselves out on features that they might want to dissolve in the future or something. I don't know. But that's the first news story.
I was going to try to break some of that down for newer players, and I was just like, forget it. We'll be here now.
There's a lot of lore there. I'll see you on the back end of the raid. It's been fun. I'll see you in the Trash Talk.
Thanks,
Tuesday.
Rendell.
It's been a fun day, and I look forward to hearing some more about the lore and the evil mind AI.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a good night.
The evil Quaif factory. Go ahead, Ash. See you, Rendell.
I need to figure out how to lay all that stuff out. That's one of the ones I need to work on. But any rate, the next two articles are just about the monuments that were made. So there's the new Amar monuments for Catus and Dorium, or not Catus, but Jamil and Dorium II, and then also the player monuments with the Alliance tournament and Kriba's monuments. So it's just the news article about those. And then there's this really interesting news article. Empress Catus begins unannounced tour of Amatar Mandate. So there's been some controversy within the Amar Empire in recent months, but now Empress Catus, the first ruler of Amar, has now made an unannounced tour of the Amatar Mandate. So the entire Empress's honor guard, which has been in Amar for over 3 years, has now been physically moved to
Amatar space.
Tanu, the system of Tanu. So they're now right above Tanu 2, and they are in game. So I don't know if this is going to play into something later, but it both represents a change in game, and it's in the news.
Might be worth
Amatar, by the way,
taking a tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might be worth checking it out or keeping an eye on it at the very least. The Amatar are very interesting because the Amatar are basically the Matar people. So that Mimitar were enslaved by the Amar. A lot of them broke free, but a lot of the Mimitar, when they were enslaved, actually worked with their masters, and they worked with their masters closely enough that they became afraid that that they would no longer be accepted by other Matari, and so they're adopted fully into the Amar Empire, and that is the Amatar Mandate. And there's been a lot of questions about whether or not how much rights that they can have, who's in control of that area of space, or who's responsible for it within the Empire, whether or not an Amatar person can hold nobility ranks, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this is kind of played out in the story over the last couple of months, and now you have Caddis moving her entire honor guard from Amar to Tanu without any warning.
Wild.
In addition to that, we have the Angel Cartel turf wars with Cruel Floor organization heat up again in the inner system. More stuff involving weird lore stuff with player stuff and other stuff. I'm in the talks with Elizabeth from Electus Matari, one of the major Mimitar factions, to try to understand what's going on. I'll either have an interview or breakdown for you guys soon. Republic Military Command in Floswin 4 under pressure as House Sorum builds bases in occupied Metropolis. Floswin is the faction warfare system that's been fought over by the Mimitar and the Amar and been highlighted in the lore for at least a year and a half now. We have Coastal Clan Elder found murdered in Ritual Sweat Lodge. Black dagger reportedly used in gruesome slaying. A little bit ago, a Khanid lord threatened the black daggers of something or other will rain down upon them, and now you have assassinations using the black daggers. So, over 12 months since YC 122 Federation election attacks, clamor for answers grows as anniversary of investigations commission approaches. So the day of the elections, there was a simultaneous attacks that killed 2 of the delegates. One of them was a clone, or was able to be cloned, but ended up disrupting the elections. They eventually finished the elections, and the lady whose name is eluding me at the moment won. But there has never been a follow-up about those attacks and why they happened and who they were for and whether or not there was more involved with that. Anibra assassins strike on Ataki Prime as drug gang jostle for lucrative spaceport and station territories. Cool. Galnet Associations denies petitions to remove Divinity Social adverts from broadcasting channels. This I love. So the Divinity Social ad is the in-game ad that shows like the guy looks, I think it's a guy. I think it goes guy, girl, Triglavian, but it's like that guy looks over and the girl, and she's like looking over. And it's like clearly a dating ad, and then looks over and there's Triglavian as the third person. And like everybody's like, oh my God.
So
and
does
in
that
fact,
make
I think
it,
somebody put on.
Does that make it like a 9-some?
Ha! Wow. All right. Well, that was good. All right. So
can we go one show without references that are blue? Like, can we go one show?
Oh. So they posted, somebody posted on the in-game forums, in-character forums, a petition to have Divinity Social's ad removed as it was indecent within certain regions, which actually brought up a really interesting question about them having certain ads only appear in certain areas of space based on like regional requirements. But ultimately, it made it into the news as no, we're not going to do that. Caldari Navy denied Triglavian threat led to Theranos 5 mining colony quarantines for severe disease outbreaks, more unrest in the Caldari state. Sauron police guards and MIO Inquisition raids heretical cult cells across Naki systems industrial colonies. I don't know whether or not that has a deeper follow-up at the moment. So yeah, lots of little movements in the lore. Catis being moved was a pretty significant event. As I've said multiple times in the last couple of weeks, I really feel like we may not be waiting for FanFest, but we are waiting for a FanFest style announcement where right now we're in that refractory period where we're waiting for the big thing to happen. That's it.
I don't know why. There it is. I'm not going to do the Muterall thing today. My mute was stuck there. Thanks very much, Ash. Appreciate you going through that stuff.
And Zoria's pronouns is them, they, just so that you know.
Jeez,
we know because they refer to themselves as we. Come on, it's not that hard.
Well, now we're talking about 18 instead of 9. So it's like, it just gets crazier and crazier. Thanks, Ash, for all that lore stuff and the context. I wish we could break it down for newer players, but we'll have to do special episodes for that. It's just too dense. But thank you all very much. Thanks, Ash, for running us through stuff. And Caleb, thanks for being here and doing the European show earlier today. Check out that one. That's on Talking in Stations. Go to youtube.com/talkinginstations, and you can see the European shows there as well. All right. Thanks, you guys, for showing up. And thanks, Ron, for that huge raid. We're going to move you all over to Trash Talk Tuesday so you can see nullsec news and banter for the rest of the night. Good night. And we will see you tomorrow for a special Quarantine in Stations, which we moved from today to tomorrow with our doctor friend. And we're going to talk about real life stuff in Quarantine in Stations a year later. Thanks. We'll see you next time.